At long last, the secret origin of Atom Eve. The story started out on a rather sad note, but hey, you have to start somewhere. Is how the 3-page of this entire large compendium is how the 3-page origin story for Atom Eve starts. And we're now here to talk about the 55-minute special Invincible Presents Atom Eve, released on Amazon a few months ago now. This is directed by Haley Herrick, written by Helen Lee and Robert Kirkman. I am Brandon T. McClure, of course, and with me on this journey is only Sparkz. How are you, sir?
It's me. I'm here. Happy to do it.
Our other Fake Nerd cohorts either could not be here or decided they didn't have a lot to say about it, which is perfectly reasonable on both counts. So you just get myself and my good friend Sparkz to talk about Atom Eve, her origin story special. So Sparkz, why don't we get some initial thoughts? What did you think about this one?
I think it's good. I mean, like, you know, it's a special episode, so like it's laser focused on what it's doing. And there's not like a oh damn, gotta get to that next episode or what's gonna happen next in the, you know, it's just not that vibe that you're coming away with for it. When you said like it's a 3-page story, I'm like, I see it. I see how it's like I'm not gonna say stretched out, but a filled out 3-page story, you know?
Yeah.
I enjoy it.
I don't know if there's a longer origin story later on, or if some of this elements, because I'm still in the first compendium. There's I think 3 compendiums in total of Invincible. I don't know if there's a lot more that they do that this story comes from, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really like Invincible. I was pretty blown away by that first season in general, and I was eager for more. And they surprise dropped this, and I watched it pretty much right away at the time. There's a lot of things I really like in it, and when you kind of get over the Invincible's back of it all, that I think probably Amazon was banking on when they did the initial drop of like, hey, you've been waiting for Invincible, here's a special treat for you guys. And you know, you get that kind of like hype of like, oh my god, Invincible's back. I think once you kind of get away from that, the cracks do show a bit more. So second time watching it a little, is what I'm trying to allude at. And there's slight issues I have with it going on the second time, but overall I think it's a good time. It's a solid story, and there's some great action.
Interesting. You have a second viewing that I don't have, so I want to hear more about how you feel about those things. I think for me, it's I guess the best way to say it is that I feel like there's 3 pages of interesting details about this story, and then everything else about it is kind of traditional.
Yeah.
Basic? I don't want to say basic. That feels too harsh.
Basic does. Traditional sounds a little less harsh than basic.
Yeah, traditional. Like I just I feel like none of the characters around Eve feel as well developed or interesting in her origin story as the other Invincible characters do in the rest of the show.
Yeah, you think so?
Like it's the maybe the mom. I might give you the mom. Like her adoptive mom.
Yeah.
But like besides that, it's like it's the best friend who gets freaked out by the powers and then never talks to her again because she thinks she's a freak. Check. It's the dad who calls her a freak and doesn't get her, which we already kind of had to explain to us from season 1 a bit. Check. It's the government man who's like, I need the weapon. Check. It's a scientist man who's like, I don't know if this is the right thing, but I'm going to do it anyway. Check.
Mm.
And then it's the I'm the adoptive figure who's been watching you for 20 years and don't use your powers. And like he's not a boring character, but he's not exactly a fresh character.
Yeah, I don't think I have necessarily the same issue there. Um, Not to say that what you're saying isn't totally valid.
I want to clarify that. I
Mhm,
don't think it's necessarily an issue. I just think that like it stands out when this thing is isolated as a special. Like
mhm.
it's just about these things. And I'm like, there's a lot of stuff I feel like I've seen in a lot of other
Sh
places here, which is not true if I watch any episode of Invincible. And so like
Sure.
comparatively, it's just harsher just because it is this so contained thing. You're not getting a lot of the I mean, even down to the like, if you like, it's fun, it's cool, but it's like Omni Man showing up at the beginning, and it's like, if you know, it's like, well, this is before he like kills all those guys. Like, dang, this is, but like, it's a traditional like Justice League opening.
Sure. I like the world building of that scene that I'll get to a little bit in a minute. I'm never one to shy away from tradition, tropes. These are all it's superheroes are pretty tropey.
Yes,
That's not controversial.
yeah,
Um and Invincible plays with some tropes, leans into others, and the Invincible as a series is very good in that way. The comic plays into a lot more tropes than it does because of the time it was coming out, and the show is able to kind of subvert those because of all the superhero media that has come out. There's a lot of to be learned. I just kind of feel like I'll probably say the same. I don't know if I want to make this comparison, but I think I have to because I can't think of a better one. We haven't reviewed Blue Beetle yet, and it's something that I really want to do.
mm,
Um, Blue Beetle is very, to use the vernacular that the less harsh vernacular, traditional. It's traditional. Uses a lot of tropes we've seen before, and I think Blue Beetle is wrapped I think those kind of things like I don't know why they don't stand you know what? I don't know why they don't stand out the same way to me as they do others or even you. Um, it's interesting, how that kinda, like how that is because, like, I really love Blue Beetle. I really like this thing, and even though they're using things I've seen before, I still find them interesting, and I still find them engaging. Um I don't know. I don't necessarily know why that is. Perhaps it's a character flaw. But I don't know if I yeah, I think it's just a different points of view there rubbing up against each other there.
well, it's
'Cause
not like I'm
I
saying
kind of
like
I kind of fell down a thought rabbit hole.
it's not like I'm saying that it's a devastating problem. And I do think
Yeah.
like there's a difference between like without having seen Blue Beetle. Uh I think there's a difference between when you have an expectation of a level of something
Mhm.
because of what's already existed and then something that's just new. And
Sure.
like this isn't even new to Invincible. Like everybody who's not a comic dork in that space or wasn't familiar with the comic when they watched the first episode of Invincible, they're like, "Yeah, all right, this is nice. I don't know if I'd really watch it though." Like the more average viewer base, and then Omni Man kills a bunch of people
Yeah.
brutally, and everyone's like, "Yo, this is not the show I thought it was." That's the thing. It's like Invincible's full of that of
Yeah.
zigging where you expect it to zag, and
There's
held
no
to the
zigging. There's
standard
no zigging here is what you're saying.
held to the standard of what you usually get when you watch Invincible,
Yeah.
there's a lot less of that on the table here. And it doesn't make it bad. I think I come away wondering, like, why does this need to be its own special?
Sure.
What was the value in doing this much of the story this way? and not like flashbacks with Eve or Eve just explaining some of this. Like, where is the inherent value? Yes,
Yeah.
I care more about the character. I'm attached to it. Will the things I learn about her here be like, I don't know. I'm assuming they will be relevant with the character going forward in the regular show, and I'm
Well,
hoping so.
I think that's a valid question actually, because like we already know that Eve's desire isn't to be a superhero in the traditional sense, is to make a difference.
Right.
We already know that from the show. Um, and I guess I do kind of agree with the idea, like, you know, what is new that we learned about Eve in this? We knew she was adopted. We knew that her parents sucked.
Yeah.
We knew that she wants to make a difference.
And we
Um,
knew that she did superheroing stuff and then kind of soured on the way she was going about it, which was more classic. We just didn't know the
yeah,
semantics of why. I mean, like, really what we know is like how she got her powers and the tragedy behind like her birth family.
yeah,
That's very moving and everything. And I care about her and I care about that. But what is the purpose of telling us that this way? You know,
sure.
why a whole 55-minute special about it? And I think it's all fine if like this stuff is going to matter in the long run. Like it's been lingering on her. It's a way she feels about, a family that she's going to form of like people she cares about because she starts to let more people in a real way in the show. Totally get that, because like she briefly had people who she felt more connected to than her own parents in this special, and then tragically had them taken away.
Hmm.
um I think there are ways that all this can circle back around in the show. I just don't know that that'll happen. And so it makes me kind of wonder. I make it sound like I didn't like this. I like this.
Oh
I
no,
just,
I
I
want
just,
to,
yeah.
and I apologize that I want to hover on this a little bit more because I'm just curious. I'm just interested in what you have to say about all this and posing these questions and things. Um, when I found out it was 55 minutes, I was actually shocked. I wonder if perhaps a 25-minute special would have been better, a little smaller, a little tighter. Um, and I also wonder, what was the timetable in the production of this episode? Were they working on this episode at the same time that they were working on season 2?
Hmm.
Because I question that because of the animation,
Hmm.
which I think is noticeably, I to say worse is, again, we're running into like that bad word kind of idea of like basic, you know, like it's because it's not bad animation, but it's not as good as the first season of Invincible, I don't believe. And
Which I think
there's great animated moments in this episode, but like still.
which might have less to do with like the production pipeline. Sorry, less to do with the timeline and more to do with like how much time and budget were they willing to allow to this,
Yeah.
because it's just a special. Gotta put the big stuff in the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Adam Eve a lot.
Mhm.
She is one of the main characters of Invincible, and I enjoy her. I think she's great. I'm very excited to watch her do more in the show. I guess to me, when you tell me you're going to make a special episode of Invincible, I kind of wonder why it's not about someone who's interesting and more on the sidelines.
Like Alan.
There's a lot of characters that
Sure.
you
Yeah.
could throw out there who are not going to be like our main center focus characters, that I kind of wonder why aren't we doing something like that, because that's the other thing is like the worst case scenario, right, is that they do this and like none of this really comes to real fruition. Like you're just kind
Mhm.
of expected to have the knowledge of it, and that in itself make you inherently more empathetic to Eve.
Mhm.
And that be it, and like no real tangible stuff of it coming back around or anything like that.
Sure. I get that.
Whereas like if you're gonna go with that and it be so isolated, I mind a lot less personally an isolated story that's about a character who maybe is already dead in the show, or who we're never going to get that kind of focus on in the regular show.
Sure.
And like, if you do that kind of like dedicated focus here, if none of that information really comes back around, that bothers me less.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of what kind of not puts me up against this or anything, but just has me kind of like, yeah, right. And Adam Eve special.
Sure. Yeah, I get
It's
that.
not bad. It's just kind of like cool.
We mentioned the opening with the Guardians of the Globe coming in to fight not the Serpent Society, but it's kind of it's kind of that idea.
Tatiana Maslany.
Is it Tatiana Maslany in that? Interesting. Yep. I like that scene. I think that's a fun scene. I like the Guardians of the Globe kind of coming in and having this like, oh, where are all these characters, like kind of like expanding the world, doing this kind of world building that I do like to see. And then Omni-Man coming in and there's some good dialogue there. That's really all I wanted to say about that scene. Actually, there's nothing more to say.
None of those Guardians age at all.
Well, there's one, I don't remember the green leotard dude, whatever his name is. Isn't that his successor is the one who gets killed in the beginning of the series?
Genuinely, I'm too far away to remember.
I think the one who gets killed in the beginning of the series is a girl, and that's a guy. So It would be the successor that gets.
All right. But everybody else doesn't age.
No, well, and then there's the guy. There's the guy with the lightning bolt on his. He's not even in the team when we meet him. When we meet the Guardians of the Globe later. So yeah, that kind of like world building, like a previous iteration of the Guardians of the Globe. That's kind of fun, like that. No,
sure.
And I wonder if, like, as you're saying that, like, it's coming into my head of like, would it have been better to have been a special about the Guardians of the Globe?
I do. I also, like, you say that, and I'm like, is that just an Invincible Justice League movie?
Yeah, probably.
Like, is that all it is? Because like they are killed off fairly early because they are pretty heavy archetypes of the people that they're playing off of. Like, you've changed some things around, but everyone knows who they're paralleling. Like, the most interesting character there is the Immortal, and that's only because like we've gotten more out of him.
Yeah.
Got a big giant letter on my chest. Is that what this is?
That was pretty good.
I laughed. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, I mean, and you can tell it's like the same kind of eye that Invincible has. It came from the same tailor.
Yeah.
Lance Reddick's in this.
Yeah, he is.
Shout him out.
Yeah.
Post-mortem. Well, he was alive when this came out, but still. I want to know. I'm so curious to ask you this, and I'm glad that you're here because, like, you and I have watched Adventure Time.
Okay.
You and I love Adventure Time.
Sure. Yes. True.
How do we feel about Stephen Root as a voice actor? Because he's Mr. Merton in Adventure Time, and he's once again here as the doctor who saves Eve's life.
Yeah. I blame the writing, I think, more than I blame the voice acting for this guy. Because like he is one of the things where I'm like, he's just kind of like one note.
Sure.
I mean, that's part of the thing is they're not even. They do the thing where like he's been homeless her entire life, but he's still wearing his doctor's coat under there just in case we forgot he was the doctor. Like, come on, y'all. He's hiding from the guys, but he'll still wear his lab coat.
Sure.
Like,
and yeah, that was. I mean, that's a. It's a classic. Like, none of the characters of Scooby-Doo ever changed their outfits.
Yeah, I don't know. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's a classic animated trope.
No, I hear
the
you.
same thing.
Look, I hear you. I
Yeah,
hear you. I just feel like Invincible is not existing in that same space.
that's fair. I mean, most animated shows don't really exist in that same space anymore.
No, but I mean, like, there's a place for that, and I feel like Invincible is not one of those.
Sure.
Like nobody would have batted an eye. It literally, like, the second thing he says when we shows up, even if you don't know that's him, is I'm the one who was with your mother. I made sure you were safe. And then you'd be like, oh, he's the doctor guy. Like, we don't need the lab coat to know he's the doctor guy.
Also, Stephen Root has a voice that you would recognize.
Yeah.
So you would get it just by him talking.
Right. That's kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just feel like he gets trapped in being a little one note until the very last minute, which is when he finds out what they did to her mom.
Yeah.
And this is kind of where I'm like, I feel like there was more we could have done with him. Like, it's never explored why he changed his mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, other than, I guess, implied guilt because he pulled her off the street to do this.
Yeah. Well, he says that he didn't know that this was going to be used for a weapon, I guess. And that kind of like made him grow a conscience, I guess.
There's I didn't know, and I didn't know.
Sure.
And this feels like I didn't know. And like the opening kind of makes you feel like, not that he was in love with her, I won't go that far, but like that there was something more personal that had happened.
Yeah, he cared about her.
Yes. Like, and he doesn't look after this daughter if he doesn't care. And like, I don't feel like they justify that. I'm gonna make myself homeless for your entire life. Because I've got to protect you because I care about you. Like, the man ruins his life to look after her. And I don't feel like they justify why he did it. They're just like, he's just, he's a good guy. And I'm like, okay. Sure.
With the kind of real estate they're dealing
and
with, you could have explored that a bit more.
Because he's the kind of character who you don't see again after the opening, and so you don't have to think about it that long. It's like, oh, yeah, he's just like, that was a nice doctor. He had a change of heart.
Mm-hmm.
But then he is a character later, and I'm like, more should have happened here.
Sure.
And honestly, if he's the kind of character that he is, shouldn't he be excited about all the things that she's able to do with her powers? He made her. Shouldn't he be like, I know he's saying like the hide it and everything, but she's like, I can do these things. And I kind of wanted to, you could do what? Like,
well, he knew how powerful she was going to be because he says he put in a blocker to prevent her from doing it to organic tissue.
Yeah.
So he knew that her powers were going to be limitless.
And I still feel like if you create something like that, you're kind of amazed when you're still encountering it and seeing it.
Sure.
And like, it's just not, is what I mean. It's just, he's very like kind of by the books of what you get. And like, it's not bad. It's just like, this is all we're going to get about these characters around Eve at this point in her story, I suspect. Like, everything else after this is going to be about how this, if it's referenced at all, is going to be about how it lingers with her.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're going to do that, like, and do this focus on them, I don't know, like, I needed to care a little bit more about why he cared about the mom so much.
Sure.
I needed it to be more than just implied, I feel bad
when he dies. Well, he has a flashback of him caring about her, and I don't know. I think it was enough. I got that he cared about her. He liked her. You could see it, and when he's like,
no, I know he cared. I know he cared because of the opening. Like, I see that he cares about her. That's not the problem.
Yeah.
I don't understand why he cared about her so much to turn on what he was doing with the job. I don't understand, like, what changed him? What made him go, I will trash my life for this girl?
Right, but you're under the assumption that he knew that she was going to be a government weapon. But the text of the show wants you to believe that he wasn't, which is where the change of heart comes from. That he wanted to he did it for he did the procedure for altruistic reasons, but when he realized, classic, once again, classic trope, like once you realize what the nefarious company is actually going to do it for, then you are like, wait, no, this is not what I signed up for, so I need to fix this.
I guess it
But
didn't feel like
it wasn't enough for you.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I get that.
I mean, like, it's enough for me to be like, yeah, cool. It's not enough for me to like give more of a shit about him.
Yeah,
like to find him interesting or unique on his own. It's not enough for that.
Sure. I've been pretty agreeable about your points, because obviously I respect your opinions and I want you, and I don't want you to feel like I don't, but I think I pretty firmly disagree with you on this one. I think the text of the film of the show, sorry, not the film, does give me enough for me to care about the doctor and understand why he ruined his life, why he cared about her, why he does what he does. Again, because perhaps because I'm going back to the beginning of our discussion, because I'm more willing to accept the tropiness of this story than perhaps you are.
I get all of it. I just think it's very surface level.
Oh, I'm not saying you don't get it. And I guess I'm not even disagreeing that it's surface level. I just think it was enough, is what I'm trying to say. For me, anyway. Yeah.
How do you feel about him lying to her about her mom being homeless?
Oh, I mean, he wants to create this image of her dead. At this point, he doesn't know that the mom's alive. He thinks that she's dead. I think it's kind of nice to his heart's in the right place. I see, for me, like, I think throughout the whole time, I think his heart's in the right place. He wants her to have an image of her mom that she was just homeless.
Mm-hmm.
That he wants to say that she was special to him. He wants her to believe that. And I like that. Honestly, I do. You said it like you didn't, though.
I just think it's more interesting if she finds out that that's not the case.
You think so?
I think it's a more interesting story.
Yeah.
Like, I'm happy that we know that that's not true. At least it's not as flowery and wonderful as he makes it for her. But it's certainly a more interesting and complicated story if she knows the truth.
I mean, he doesn't necessarily say that he just said that she was a what was the word he used? Like a
she said, "Are you my lab partner? Was she your lab partner?" And he said, "Yeah."
Yeah, he's not technically lying.
She was his lab experiment. Come on. Like, come on.
But they were friends.
Sure.
And you can see that in the flashback.
Sure.
I don't know. I didn't see anything.
Okay, you know what? I'll be more direct about it. I think that you get a lot of, like, we're going to be nice about how good this doctor is. What a nice man. What a nice thing he did. Look at this picture he gets to paint about his lab partner. She was your mom. We were friends. It was so good. Really, really washes away that, like, she was homeless, desperate, and he pulled her into a situation that was probably going to end up killing her. And, like, there you go. Like, he did that. And experimented on her, and, like, there's a morally bankruptness that he gets to squeaky clean. And by context of him not being a more depth developed character, very surface level, he gets to kind of just play squeaky clean good guy doctor. And I'd even give him more of it if someone else had been the person who pulled her off the street. Mm-hmm. We see specifically that it was him. He can't even, like, pretend that he's not the person who did it.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, you could argue that, like, oh, he's doing something good or helpful or nice for her, but I'm like, I don't know how much a person who's that desperate really goes from like, cool, I can like eat and have a place to sleep. I just got to have a baby with
I
a
don't
lot of
think
lab experiment tests done on me.
I don't think he knew the baby was going to kill her.
I don't think he knew it would happen, but he did know it could. I would argue he did know it could.
I'm not sure I would argue that because that's not explicit in the text.
No, okay, but there's no way you're doing the kind of shit he's doing to make a baby like that. And it's like, this is that regular pregnancy is a risk to a mother. There's no world where you don't go, this might kill this mom.
I
Like, you
think
don't.
he was probably confident in at least his abilities. I mean, he took her to a normal hospital. I'm pretty sure he figured that she could live.
I'm not saying that like he was 100% confident it was going to kill her.
Yeah.
I'm saying that the risks were there.
Oh,
and
sure.
and how much would she have been aware of the risks or really have that information? Look, we're doing a lot of reading in between the lines. My only point is to say that like that's a complicated moral decision, but it is
Mm,
only available to you in the text of a flashback. It
mhm.
doesn't get to complicate Eve as a character, and it doesn't get to complicate the perception of this man because nothing else about him in the text of the show gets complicated in the special. That is your
I
one avenue of it, and it's not elaborated on to make him to make a more depth, what's more a more complex character out of him in the position that he's in.
see that's where I'll agree with you on this one. I think that the purpose of it doesn't inform Eve's character, and that's kind of where that's where you've got me. All the stuff with what he was doing, how he's pictured, that's where you lose me. But you've got me on he he doesn't inform he doesn't do anything for Eve's character, not really. Eve is through and through not changed throughout this story. Um, but from the get go, she is very much pretty steadfast in her life, in her personality, in everything she knows. And by the end of it, she feels lost for a family that she thought she could have had.
Yeah, I sorry,
But there's
finish your
nothing.
what you're saying.
No, but there's nothing of the perceived reading between the lines idea of what this doctor did or did not do, what his actual motivations are, whatever. Again, you're right. We are reading between the lines because there's really not much more there. It's so we're honestly this whole discussion is giving it way too much credit. So like the but so again you've got me when it's not informing Eve's character.
Right.
That the baseline, nothing about whatever he did or did not feel informs Eve's character.
Yeah, it's just like that is it. Is that him taking is seeing in the flashback that he's actually taking her off the streets is a morally complex thing. It's not even me saying he's a bad person or anything. It's just it is it is more complex than everything else about the character in the special. And it's not paid off anywhere else for Eve or even for him. Um and because of that, Eve walks away from this like when she makes that picture at the end and he's in it. It's like he's pseudo father figure and I'm like I just don't is
You
that
don't see it.
warranted? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I see. I get what you're saying. I understand that. Um,
And going to that, part of where the special loses me a little bit too is I just don't feel like it does anything. No, that's not true. Let me rephrase. I don't think it goes as far as I want it to go with the sibling story.
mhm.
This is another one where it's like I'm really glad that they have that emotional moment at the end when she's watching him dissolve in her arms and everything. Like that's really sweet. But like he also did the whole like you're the perfect one and I'm going to attack you thing, which yeah, it's a trope and it's a great action scene, and all that stuff. But there's not a lot of richness for having those sibling characters on the table. I don't really know how much we're added by having that many of them when only one of them can talk. I think
Just
even
kind
if
of
you paired
adds.
it, I think even if you paired it down to the 2 at the end, instead of 3, is it 3 or 4? That first attacker, it's 4, right?
3? I thought it was 3.
God, I don't even remember. I know one of them dies very quickly.
Yeah.
It's practically instant.
I think it's 3.
Okay.
Oh, I thought, were you done?
No, I was taking a sip of water and I said okay. So I was leaving it open for you to talk about the siblings if you wanted to.
No, I was just writing down a note because I talk a lot about on this podcast how my opinion shifts.
Mhm.
You know, I'm pretty frustratingly at times malleable when it comes to things I like, things I dislike. My first impressions aren't always going to be the impressions that I come out of. Um, a second time, third time, fourth time. Hell, we just found out that I don't like the Star Trek '09 film, which was news to me after 10 years.
Breaks
And
my
so,
heart.
um, and so like it's so coming out of the Adam Eve special, I was very excited. Really liked it. I loved it even. I was like, "This is great. Really happy about this. There's so much good stuff here." Um, watching it the second time, and I'm not even saying I have the same problems as what you're saying, and perhaps it's just a case of I'm really tired today, and I don't know if I've been able to think about a lot of the stuff on a more what's the opposite of surface level? Deep level doesn't sound right.
I know it doesn't. I keep trying to find some kind of word to convey depth.
Yeah.
On a deeper level.
Deeper level. There we go. I have the strength or energy to think of this on a deeper level, and perhaps that's what the special wants you to think. Perhaps the special doesn't want you to think about these things on a deeper level because it is leaning so heavily on tropes and leaning so heavily on these things that we are already familiar with to convey its idea that yeah, at the end of this, Eve is going to mourn a family she never had because she's unhappy with the family she currently has because they don't understand her and the dad's a dick. But what I don't, but I think you're right because when you do think about it on a deeper level, it doesn't hold water. It doesn't when the sibling is dying in her arms. Why is she sad about that? There's nothing in the text to convey that she should. This is just a
Nothing.
villain that she's attacked.
Yeah, outside of the fact that she knows genetically it's her brother, and like, but nothing happened in the turn to really enforce that emotionally.
Yeah. And there's no also on his sense of and even on his end of being like, what do I, oh, I'm glad you were the perfect one, sister. I'm glad we
I
got to
kind
meet.
of,
Like, why?
I kind of wanted a Vegeta moment, to be honest with you, where
Oh,
he's like,
sure.
he's like, they did this to us. Go get them, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Instead,
Something like that.
yeah.
Would have probably been a little bit easier to buy there. Yeah, yeah, I just kind of look at this like it, yeah. There's just things that I think that truthfully, the whole conversation, and I know I said this already, the whole conversation we had about the doctor's motivations are probably far more than was ever warranted by the script of this film of the special.
You're right about that. It's very much it's an appetizer, right?
Yeah,
It's not a meal.
yeah.
That's the thing. It's an appetizer. Appetizers are great. I love appetizers. Some people make them meals. They
Me.
shouldn't be nutritionally, but they get turned into one, right? So
I love
like,
mozzarella sticks.
who doesn't? They're
Yeah.
great. Yeah. Um but there's not a lot of there's not a lot, it's fried cheese. Fried cheese is great. It's a lot of fried cheese. Is it
But
too much fried cheese?
you don't come away feeling like you've just had a meal of substance. It's not
Yes.
like
You had a rather
spaghetti.
large snack that you are now compensating as a meal.
Yeah, exactly. It's that you don't quite feel great afterwards because you now have a headache. You're not sure why you have a headache. You've got no protein in your body, and you're like, why do I
Right.
have this headache?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's that. That's exactly what this is. There is an incredible fight scene
Yeah.
on the bridge. I think it is incredible. It's probably one of the best ever
I think
I've ever
everything
seen.
I think everything they do about her progressionally learning how to use her powers and going like one step further
Yeah,
with it, that's all really great.
yeah, me too.
I think
I
that's
agree.
all really, really good.
Um,
To be honest
lear-
with you,
Learning how she
sorry.
flies, really cool.
Yes, I agree. That first time she goes out on the disc
Yeah,
is awesome. Um, yeah, that she learns how to do more with her powers in the fight is also great about the fight.
yeah.
Like she's experimenting as she's doing it. Um, I think this is the last thing I'll be like kind of negative about. Um, we already knew stuff about their birth parents, and I don't feel like I learned anything more about them. In fact, I'm kind of mad at the dad, to be honest with you.
You mean the adopted parents?
Yeah,
Yeah, you said birth parents. Sorry.
sorry, adopted parents.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I'm kind of mad at. To be honest, I'm mad at both of them
yeah. I think they
because,
both
like,
suck.
well, but them being shitty to her feels so much more wrong, I guess, to
Yeah.
me when. Hmm.
There's a scene
It
where
feels. It
she
feels.
comes home and it's her birthday and they're mad that she missed her birthday. I'm kind of with the parents on that one.
But it feels just their whole attitude as we're going through it, because it starts with us seeing them being told their daughter has died,
Hmm.
and we know that she did. But for them, they've lost their baby,
Yeah.
and we watch them in that grief for a moment, and then they're like, "Man, she's a fighter. That's wild. She came back to us. How incredible!"
Yeah.
It's very hard for me to buy that they would go this way, even with her behaving weird. That it just goes from like the next time we see them, the dad's already like kind of done with her.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this should have been progressing just as much as her powers were. Like, I get we can get from there to I'm too weirded out by this and I can't deal with it. But the
Hmm.
fact that you put them in that place of grief, that's so hard to come back from. And then they don't love her enough.
Hmm.
They love her like they know they adopted her.
That's a good point, actually. That's a really good way to look at that. It kind of feels like it's people who don't really know how to write abusive parents. Because there are
Yeah,
abusive parents. There are parents who abuse their birth children. There are just flat out people who should not have children. Uh,
absolutely. And I gotta tell you, I rarely hear about abusive parents.
Hello.
Oh, you lost me for a moment.
I did lose you. You rarely hear about abusive parents. Was the last
You
thing I heard.
rarely hear about abusive. Yeah, you rarely hear about abusive parents who lost a child
Yeah.
and then were abusive. And I think that was such a misstep, to put them in emotionally,
Yeah.
uh, because it made them so bafflingly unbelievable to me. And like again, like now that I have the context that like not only do they believe she's their birth daughter, they believe that she's their birth daughter who they almost lost and came back to them.
Mhm.
And what an emotional relief that was for them. And this is how they treat her? It's a bridge too far, my guy.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting to see how we know they suck. We know they're abusive. Well, we know the father's abusive more likely. And it's just not really explained why in this other
It's all
than
yeah.
yeah, he is.
It's all just wrapped up in she's weird.
Yeah.
And I'd rather she was normal. And like that they don't like that she's not normal. And I don't think the context that they set those parents up with that makes sense, and you kind of have to walk me through it. You have to make me feel like it's progressional. But again, I think it's a problem that we see her when she's so young.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like the dad's already there.
Yeah.
Like she's what, 5 or she's like 6, I think.
I think she's 5.
Yeah, she's like that age, and the dad's like sick of this shit. Like,
yeah, like no, like as a father, like no, your kid is struggling, and then you find out the kid is gifted, and your response is, oh, she's too weird to me. I mean, we know that the reason why parents, a very very particular trope of abusive parents is they're frustrated that they don't understand their child, which isn't an excuse, but that is a trope that has been used. And that's what this special is going for. But it doesn't quite work. And I think one of the missteps is we've talked, the first season of Invincible changes things, moves things around, all sorts of things to kind of adapt it for a more 21st century audience. The comic came out in the 21st century. That's a horrible thing to say. But for like a nowadays audience, and perhaps the losing the child thing probably should have been one of the things they changed, and maybe that would have helped it a little bit. And that probably was a little too handcuffed to the source material than it should have been.
I'll be pretty direct and honest and say that I don't believe that anybody who would let that go through the writing process intimately knows anybody who has lost a child, especially in like the like either right up before birth or in the pregnancy process or just immediately after.
That's
and like
probable.
it feels very thoughtless in that regard.
Sure.
To me. And it makes it so that like I think there was something more. This is the thing, is when you're comparing it to like the Invincible show and like the family dynamic stuff we get with Marc and what we see through his eyes. And then you come here and it's like these parents are just like one level, and like we're not. I think they want to tell you but not show you that like, well, they do care about her because look, they're trying, because they're sending her to the school for talented kids and like smart kids and things like that. But they don't go far enough to have that be a conflict of like, the mom says it. She's like, we did what we could. We sent you to that school, and I wanted Eve to come back with, you sent me there to get rid of me, not because you thought it was best for me.
Right.
Not because you were trying to help me. It's because you didn't want me around.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right about that.
And I wish that kick-ass babysitter guy came back, because that was a cool character.
Yeah, I liked him. He was cool.
But he thought her weirdness was cool, so those parents were like, never again.
Screw that guy. Probably thought he was weird.
I love the way she's making molecules.
Yeah, me too. The joke at the end, where was Marc Grayson throughout all this? That's pretty good.
It's funny. I actually really like the Omni-Man scene when like no one else can see him, and he's like has this rage about being told to like finish dinner or prepare the dishes or something, and like the rage that comes through him, and then like the kind of remorse that you see. I think that's all lovely, because that's a character that we understand where all of those things are.
Yeah, and I wonder how that's going to play into Omni-Man in the next season.
Yes, I'm very interested in that, because that's the whole thing, is like he's a man who so desperately doesn't want to love his wife but clearly does.
Yeah. And his like clearly loves his family and doesn't want to.
It really, really doesn't want to.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so weird that there's more depth to that throwaway gag joke post-credit scene than there is in the special. Yeah, and again, I like it. I think it's fun. That for me, the freeway fight is worth the price of admission alone.
It's great.
There's so many cool things in that fight. And I love how fluid the animation becomes in that when she like does the feet thing. So cool. Anyway, sorry.
There's one other note that I will touch on that I'm very positive on, which is I think knowing about the like you're blocked from messing with biological matter and the like shooting of him and the death of her mom in front of her and all of that being compiled on her in like a day. Like she fought her siblings that day. And that pushes her through that mental block. I think that's a good scene.
Yeah, me too. She basically goes Super Saiyan and I quite like that.
Yeah.
It's a good scene. Yeah.
That emotional catharsis works, but I think the journey to get there could have been better.
Yeah. Yeah, probably. I would like to know what the pipeline of developing the special was, because I don't think that they were working on this for 2 years like they were working on Invincible.
No, they weren't. That's the thing is, and honestly, I would maybe there's a part where I would have liked this even more if it came out like 8 months earlier than it did.
Yeah,
like a true in betweener, and I'd be like, wow, what a wonderful thing. But like, Invincible wasn't too far around the corner when this came out.
Yeah.
Like we had a release date, a realistic one, and it's like I don't know. I'll put it this way: when you go back and rewatch the show, will you watch the special?
Yeah, probably not.
That's the thing, right?
I watched the scene on YouTube of the highway chase scene, though.
Sure, but like you're gonna go back and do a rewatch. Let's just say hypothetically with someone who didn't watch it, and wants to. Are you gonna watch this?
If I was watching it with someone who didn't watch it, yeah, I would. But if I was watching it on my own, probably not.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah. Okay. I think that'll do it.
Yeah, I think I kicked it around enough. Look, I think
it's already dead.
Look, it's Invincible. It's very good. It's competently made. It looks really good most of the time. Especially like we said, the fight scene. It's a really like Invincible's one of the best shows around, and I'm sure season 2 is going to be just as much more of that as season 1 was, and that it's going to be kick ass. And I think this is just like, it's not a bad showing. It's just kind of like Invincible is at like high caliber great, and this feels more like good to fine.
Sure. I know I was a little unoffensive of the special here, but I'm much higher in the good ranking for myself. I like it. I had a good time. But you got to admit it's got some problems. It's not as good as Invincible. It's not. It's mostly surface level, and that's just not something you could say about the show.
It doesn't feel as thoughtful for a bunch of characters who either shouldn't matter to other characters or spending time with in the case of the adopted parents, or characters we're never going to see again. It doesn't feel like it's giving as much story to them as you'd want it to in an Invincible story. And I hope if there are to be more specials in the future, which I think is a great idea, that they are more thoughtful about characters that we're either never going to spend a lot of time with or never see again.
Yeah, I agree.
Because Eve's going to be fine. I'm going to always love Eve, and all this information is going to be additive to her, even if they never reference it.
Yeah.
Like, that's awesome. That's great. But as a singular outing, it would be really cool if I could be like, man, some of the characters, the revelations that happened with the doctor, or how we watched her relationship degrade with her birth parents, all that kind of stuff, like that could really stand out and mean something. And it's like, it's fine. It's good. Yeah. It's there. And it's enjoyable. That's it.
Well, hopefully we don't feel this way about Invincible season 2 when we return, which we will. We will return with the first 2 episodes of Invincible season 2. So stay tuned for that. There's other FakeNerd's watches, guys, that you can check out. Some of the archive stuff. Oh, sorry, should I wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, unless you had anything else you wanted to say about it.
No, I would just gush about the fight scene, really.
I mean, it's a great scene.
Yeah.
I think that it's very intensive and well thought out. And I do think that they try to pack a lot of stuff into 55 minutes. I will give them credit. I think that they're trying to put a lot in there. I just think that like how it was put in and what specifically came across could have been more measured and considered. I arguably don't need the friend next door, to be honest with you. I don't know how you feel, but like
No, she disappears too early in the film.
I mean, I get the point of it about how she felt alone, but the thing is like Eve has friends in the show now, so I'm not really worried about that. Eve's birth parents still suck.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the relationship to focus on.
Yeah.
And we could have spent more time on that and lost that friend next door story.
Sure. All right. So we get out of here then?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, guys, again, like I said, stay tuned for Invincible Season 2 coming soon. And there's a lot of Fake Nerds watches coming down the pipeline now that the strike is over. Strange New Worlds, Secret Invasion, Loki, Star Wars, Ahsoka, Lower Decks. Am I missing anything?
No, I think you covered all the Fake Nerds watches. There's also Cinephiles coming.
Cinephiles is coming back. There's a lot of things coming back now that strikes are over. Cinephiles, Fake Nerds Watch, Animation Station, Real Score, yada yada yada. Go to our website, FakeNerdPodcast.com, to see the list, to see what's coming. Find the links to subscribe and watch it all. It's all going to be there. Which is linked below, or just go to FakeNerdPodcast.com. We make it pretty easy. You can also check out our Patreon and our TeePublic if you'd like to support us financially. Greatly appreciate it. Those are linked below as well as on our website. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all at FakeNerd Podcast. I am at BT McClure on Instagram and Twitter, where you can find my writings for AtomicGeekdom.com. Sparkz?
You can find me wanting to be more invincible at Sparkz Witty on Instagram and Twitter, SPARKZ Witty.
All right. Excuse me. Sorry, it's a little late It's a little late at the time of this recording.
What? No, it's not. It's fine.
All right, guys. Subscribe to us on your podcatcher of choice. Rate and review wherever you get us. Like this video. Subscribe to this channel. Until next time we see us, guys, stay fake nerds.